Good afternoon and welcome to Real Chicks Rock Presents Real Discussions. I'm your host for today, Michelle Dawsbert, and as always, I'm super excited to be here. It's a beautiful day here in Atlanta. The temperatures are gorgeous. The sun is shining. We are here, but we are still somewhat sheltering in place here in Atlanta. We're walking around with our masks, even though it's not a state law, but most of us are trying to just be conscious and trying to be safe because things are just going crazy. School has started back in session for us here in Atlanta, so there are some cases that are already out. The numbers are out. They're pretty high. Seems to be like 800 students had to be quarantined for a couple of weeks and 42 teachers already. So my prayers go out to those families and those students that have to go to school. I'm pretty blessed and fortunate. My son goes to a charter school and they've made a decision to do virtual learning for these next 9 weeks. So we are safe. So we're thankful for that. But our heart goes out to those that are not, that have to go out and be a part of this that's going on. It's just a very crazy time. I've been saying this now for the past couple of months and things still haven't really changed. I think the nice weather have us believing that we're out of the woods, but we're not. And unfortunately, when the winter comes through, I think the number of cases are going to increase. And so we just want everyone to be safe. Be safe, be safe, be safe as best as you can. Today, I am here and I have the opportunity and pleasure to talk to this lady here that's sitting to my left, and I'm going to introduce her in just a second. I want to thank all of the new listeners that are checking us out for this afternoon. For those of you that are not aware, Real Chicks Rock is all about the empowerment of women, and we do it through so many different ways. And our brand is all about collaborating and connecting and raising awareness for women. And we do it through different platforms. We do it through community service and our public speaking and mentoring. And this platform is no different. We've been using this platform for the past couple of years to talk about the issues that impact us as women. And we talk about the issues, the challenges, the opportunities, and we talk about solutions and ways to be empowered. So it's not a rant session. It's all about trying to get people to another level and vibrate higher as best as possible. Today is no different. There's a lot of talk and synergy around the power of voting, right? Our voting and our rights to do so and not to neglect that. A lot of triumphant information had happened this week, and we'll talk about that in our conversation. But I always like to give women here that are on the move, and that's today's topic or title for today's show, women that are on the move. And I always want to give this platform for people here locally that are doing some grassroots things to make things different for us here in the city of Atlanta and through the state of Georgia. So it is my honor to give today's hour or so to Representative Valencia Stovall. Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm good. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you for the invite. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. So, Representative, tell us a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind.
Yes, so I was born and raised in Southeast Atlanta. Attended school, elementary, all the way to high school there. We had a family business that was started for about 30 years. My mom and dad, promotional printing business. So community oriented, as well as business oriented. And then I moved to Clayton County in 2006. And I lived there. We even had the business that was located in Clayton County at that particular time. And then from there, just was involved even in Clayton County.
Really?
Before even thinking about being an elected official.
And how were you involved in Clayton? What were you doing there?
Well, I had a daughter and a son, and of course, and a nephew that was involved in high school. So both our sons were in the marching band, and at that particular time, of course, all auxiliaries are always trying to raise money.
Right.
And so my sister and I thought of the idea of doing a community festival. To be able to help raise money for that auxiliary and any other local auxiliary. And so we collaborated with the middle school, because my daughter was at the middle school, at Morrow Middle School, and my son was at Morrow High School, and my nephew. And then we reached out to the parents and got everybody involved with doing the community. We called it Unity in the Community Festival. And one good thing about the festival is very successful. We did it 2 years. We allowed for all the money that was raised to go back to the organization. So usually the school would get a percentage of any money that's raised. In this particular case, we were able to negotiate that all 100% of the proceeds would go back to the school. So that was kind of some of the work that we did being involved in PTA as well. And at that time, I was still involved in PTA on the Atlanta Council in Atlanta while I was living in Clayton County as well. So very strong, got it from my dad, who's a very strong community advocate in Atlanta. He's still alive at 80 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, is still involved.
Okay.
At certain levels. So that's kind of my background. A lot of people always ask, how did you get involved, in politics, or what is that community activist or grassroots? Where does it come from? And so we got it honestly.
You got it honestly, all through your bloodline.
Yes.
And still doing it. Did you find it difficult, Representative, being active and being involved in the community and being a mom, raising your kids at the same time?
It was challenging, but I knew that at the end, I wanted to make sure the community was going to be a community where I want to live, and a community where my children would want to stay if that's the decision that they wanted to make. And also knowing that whatever I was doing was not only going to affect my children, but their friends and other children that could be able to benefit from whatever activism I was doing, whether it was in education, whether it was promoting different other small businesses. No matter what area it was in, it's going to be beneficial to everyone around. And every time I looked at being involved, it was always, how do I benefit the next person, and giving them an opportunity that I might not have had, especially even with my son who was had a learning disability. And so that's how I really got involved in education and learning what my rights were as a parent. And so I knew that if he had a situation, I knew there were other parents who might not be as vocal, as I am, but still need to be educated on how to advocate for your child.
So that had you going. So why staying in Clayton County, you didn't have the itch to come to Atlanta to bring that power of being a representative or just fighting for change in Atlanta? You wanted to keep it in Clayton County?
Well, my dad had already been involved in the city of Atlanta, helped to get a lot of people elected, starting from Maynard Jackson, who was the first black mayor of a southern city. His 2 times that he ran, and even all the way down the line to Kasim, to his first term in office, even Shirley Franklin, when she first decided to run, speaking with my dad. And so I knew that there was a landmark already there in Atlanta, and so I didn't know what was going on in Clayton. And when I moved, I didn't have any indication or thoughts about running for office. I knew I was going to be involved. In what level, I didn't, wasn't sure. And so, so I said, okay, well, the position became open for state representative in 2012. And my dad said, "Won't you run?" I was like, "No, I don't want to run." I said, "My mouth is going to get me in trouble. I already know that, Dad." He said, "Well, you're not doing nothing." I said, "What you mean I'm not doing?" He said, "You're not doing nothing that you can't run." He said, "Won't you try it out and see what happens?" And so we tried it out. And 8 years later, here we are.
You are still there.
Yes.
Still doing it. Was it difficult running, Representative? I mean, getting funding and endorsing and getting out there and meeting the people. Was it difficult for you to really get that momentum?
I would think probably the most difficult part was not talking to the people, because I always was used to talking to people, especially, having a printing business. You have customers, so that's part of customer service. So I just transferred those skills that I had already acquired in the small business to being into the political arena. The hardest and challenging part was educating people about the political process and the voting process, which is still a challenge.
Still here, yes.
Now. And of course, having to ask people to make donations, that was another hard part, because being an entrepreneur, I'm used to going and getting it myself, or working with others how to figure out to go get it. So now you have to ask, hey, will you make a donation? And
a
then
small donation.
Yeah, small donation goes a long ways. So that was it. And but it was enjoyable. It was fun. We had the whole family involved with going out, knocking on doors, meeting people, and just finding out what their issues were, and then seeing how to find a solution to those issues.
And it's been some time, but Representative Stovall, do you remember what your platform was back then when you ran in 2012? What was it?
Yes, and I kept it the whole 8 years. It was the book, and the ballot. And I actually picked that up from Mayor Maynard Jackson, and that was part of his mantra. And so the book was dealing with economics, so I call it economic opportunity. And then the book dealt with education reform, and ballot dealt with voter empowerment. So the buck, the book, and the ballot.
That was it.
That was it.
So knocking on doors, telling people about that.
Yes.
You remember the turnout? Was it pretty good? People coming out and voting?
Well, the turnout overall, even in Clayton County, has always not been very, very good. It depends on, of course, if it's a presidential election. There wasn't one at that particular time, but you know, of course, we were in the cycle on the state election, and so it's always been real low, and that's another challenge. And like I said, is educating the people and helping them to understand what role policy plays in your everyday life. Just like now, when we're going through COVID-19, a lot of people don't realize that the policies play a major role, because we as the elected officials, whether on the local level, on the state or the federal, we're making decisions on where's the money going to go, and what organizations and what departments can be able to function during this time of COVID-19. So it's a lot of work and responsibility on us, and that's where the people come in, to making sure that we're held accountable about what are we going to do. We know it's unprecedented, but this is the time when you want leadership to be able to stand up and step up, to know that we all have to work together, and that people are looking for solutions during this time.
Yeah, you seem to have done a pretty good job as a representative, so congratulations on that. So why would you want to go run for the Senate? Why do you want to give up where you've been? You've got the rapport, you know the people, you know your district, you know your county, you know the needs of the people. Why do you want to go and run for Senate at this time?
Well, you know, for 8 years as a state representative, we've actually been putting, on the state level, putting band-aids on issues. And we have not really found the best solutions for them. Because those solutions have to come from Washington, D.C., which directs what we're going to do as a state, and also directs what you're going to do on the local level. And I've been successful working across the aisle with both Republicans and Democrats for being able to pass some meaningful legislation and getting some resources down to not only to Clayton County, but even statewide. And so I said, well, looking at what's going on in Washington, D.C., and said, why not me being able to take those experiences that I have and now work it for a broader audience of Georgians, because this is a statewide election, and just build upon the success that I've had for 8 years. And you're right, I didn't have any opposition, you know, going into re-election if I chose to do that. And sometimes you can stay in a place too long, and if you don't move at the right time, then you end up missing it, because sometimes that opportunity doesn't come back around.
So what is, if given the opportunity to be a senator, what's the first thing you want to see happen? What do you want to pass or see passed?
The first thing I think will be beneficial for Georgians would definitely be awareness and access. I call it AA. Which means that I want to make sure that the people in Georgia are aware of what is actually going on in Washington, D.C., what is available for them in their particular communities. We have rural Georgia, and then we have metro urban Georgia, and their needs are different. And even at the different capacities of where they have to be served. And so definitely making sure that, and then the other part with awareness is having access. So many times it might not necessarily be a piece of legislation, but knowing that legislation was already passed that benefits you in whatever area that you're in. And so making sure that connection is going on, because that's why I've seen the greatest disconnect is from the federal government to the state and then to the local level. And so also forming a committee made up of on different categories of interest that people have, to be able to make sure that we have that spread it out in different sectors of the state, so that I can continue to hear from the people. Because when you can't hear from the people, then you start making all kind of other decisions based on your own knowledge, and sometimes that your own knowledge is not what is needed at that particular time.
Right. Agriculture is big in Georgia. Entrepreneurship is big in Georgia. Education should be big, but it's not. We need it in Georgia. Just equal pay, equality, and that type of stuff. There's a lot of different things here. We are a red state, so you're, given that opportunity, you're going to be busy. How are you going to make that communication? How are you going to bridge that gap? So I'm a person, I go to work every day. I don't really know what's going on. How do I know what's happening at the Senate level? What are you going to do differently so that I'm aware?
Well, definitely building on the track record that I've had for 8 years, and making sure that my constituent base is well informed. And it's either through email, through phone calls, through having, monthly. Now that we're in the digital, we've been pushed into the digital platform, is being able to have those town hall meetings because they mean a lot. And then having accessibility to offices, across the state, so that people can be able to get in touch with my office directly to me, even when I'm in Washington, D.C.
Outside of your dad, it sounds like your dad was a major influencer in your life. Was there anybody else that motivates you into keeping the role that you have, or somebody that you look to? Is there anybody?
I would say my sister would be the next person. She's the oldest of his 3 girls. And watching her and motivating how she's motivated. When my dad and mom started the business, she of course was older than me, and watching her go through all the years of operating the business and having to learn many skills, and at the same time being a wife and a mother. And then even on her own accolades, helping to start one of the charter schools in Clayton County. And standing there and even fighting for that. So, some people might say, well, that's not anyone famous. But a lot of times you don't have to have someone famous. You can have someone that directly dealing with, and watching how they are very instrumental in helping you to build who you are. And at the same time, making sure I'm keeping it real.
That's right.
With making sure, hey,
you accountable.
did that wrong. Holding me accountable, yes.
And family will tell you, won't they?
Yes, they will.
Representative Stovall, we got some questions coming in through IG, so thanks for the people that are checking us out on IG. Question is, what would you say to a person that is a first-time voter? What would you say to them as encouragement, or what could they expect? What would you say to a first-time voter?
To our first-time voters, is to actually look at what issues that concern you the most. And when you look at those issues, you identify the candidate that resonates to you the most. Now, the person that might not line up 100%, none of the things that we do in politics lines up 100% to everybody. But you try to identify at least the majority that person lines up to what they say they want to do. And then you looking at their track record as far as have they been proven that they're going to do what they say they're going to do. That means a lot. And when you're doing that, then you know that when you're casting your vote, that you're casting your vote for who you think is the best. Research, and ask other people. You're going to get different opinions. Somebody might say, well, I don't think that person did a good job. Another person would definitely say something else. But even for our first-time voters, those who never voted before, this is the ideal time to be able to make sure that you're casting your vote. Not just because it's a presidential election, but also because you have down the ballot, like you have with the U.S. Senate, then you have the congressional, you have the state elected officials, you have some judges that are on the ballot, you have your local election like your school board, all of those that each one of them plays an important role, and it's up to the voter to make sure they educate themselves on what those roles play, so that you'll know who to go talk to when you're having a particular issue, or when you want to make a suggestion. We as elected officials don't know everything. I tell people all the time, I don't know everything. What I know very well, but there's a lot of things I don't know, so I have to depend on experts and depend on the community to make sure that I'm well informed on those issues.
Is there anything else that voters should be mindful of when they go and vote, Representative?
Definitely. Make sure you're checking your voter status. Here in Georgia, we do have voters are purged off a list if you don't vote like within, I think, 3 or 5 years. And so you want to make sure that you don't go on election day thinking that you're going to your polling precinct and your name is not on there, because that's a whole nother process of getting a provisional ballot. So the best time now is to go to the Secretary of State's website, is mvp.sos.ga.gov to check your status. And if it comes up and shows that you're registered, it's going to show you a polling precinct. You can even request for an absentee ballot from there as well. And you want to make sure that you know exactly where you're supposed to go vote. I encourage everyone to make sure they go and vote early. Do not wait on November the 3rd to vote. We have almost 2 to 3 weeks of early voting time that you can be able to start going in voting. And if you want to go in person, you can. If you want to do vote by mail, you can. You can even take the ballot to the precinct location. The different counties have different drop boxes even before election day. So that way you're not caught in the lines of everybody trying to go and vote at that time.
Yeah, it's just a lot of controversy around voting. We had voting this week. for the judge and sheriff and just a couple of officials, and
Right.
and it went smooth, but it could be a lengthy process.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the turnout wasn't as strong as it was back for June 9th
Right.
and as it is for presidential. But the process was improved. There was more
Right.
machines there. The machines were working, but you still had a paper ballot that you still had to
Had to
turn
scan
in
in.
and scan in and do all of that. So it's a little different. It could be longer if things back up. So
Right.
yeah, take heed to what Representative Stovall is sharing with you. We got to be cognizant, and if we can do early voting, it would be great. There's just so much controversy because there is still a population of people that are fearful of this pandemic.
Yes.
Whether you're wearing a mask or social distancing or not, they just do not want to be a part of where there's a lot of people
Right.
in a space. And so voting, mailing in our votes is going to be very critical. And so
Right.
the controversy with what's going on in the White House and
Man,
just
with
trying
the
to
post
deter
office, yeah.
everything that's going on, our vote is so critical.
Very important. If you
It's
think
so
about
critical.
it, if it wasn't that important, why would the president hire a new postmaster general
Yeah.
and then postmaster general start changing policies? If your vote wasn't that important,
Yeah.
why would all of that happen?
a
So
lot
that
of
kind of
foolishness.
tells you to say, oh, I know to make sure that I'm going to vote. And like I said, if you don't trust the mail-in process, where you don't want to mail it in, after you complete your vote, your ballot, you can actually drop it off in a lockbox, and it has the cameras on the outside of the lockbox so that nobody can tamper with it. So you can just go and drive up, put it in the lockbox,
Wow.
and that's it. Then you finish
You're
with your
good.
voting process. So you didn't have to interact with anyone. You didn't have to go inside. And then since you might not trust the mailing, then now you know that you have made sure that you voted because you put it inside of that lockbox at your county elections office.
Tell me, Representative Stovall, your opinion about the current legislation for the White House. Everybody has an opinion, but I want to try to streamline it to your current role as a representative, and then how you would align as a senator if you got that seat. So tell me, what do you think about the legislation today?
I think even now with the new CARES Act being contemplated in Washington, D.C., I think even with the first bill, when it comes to small businesses, which is part of my platform as well, is we need to reclassify how we classify small businesses.
Okay, now.
In the United States, small businesses are 500 employees or less. But you have micro small businesses, ones that might have 100 employees, 50, or maybe 2, or maybe 1. Yes. And what happened when the SBA loans came out, EIDL loans and the payroll protection, most of the ones that were able to participate were those small businesses on the higher level.
Right.
And so when it came down to the bottom of the totem pole, where a lot of our small businesses who are responsible for hiring our local people in our communities,
That's right.
they were not able to qualify, or they didn't have the resources that were needed. So, looking into moving in as a U.S. Senator, that's one of the top, is looking at our small businesses and making sure that they have an equal part of participation, no matter what that size is. And I think our small business development centers should have been brought in early on, even before the money was released. That first round of loans were released, because they are funded by SBA.
Right.
And so our micro small business could have gone to them and gotten additional assistance for whatever phase that they were in. And I think that looking at that, and now you talking about unemployment insurance has stopped those that additional federal money has stopped. And then here in Georgia, we have many people who claims have not been processed. I've been participating in press conferences across the metro area, trying to fight for those claims, because we're getting inundated as a state representative, but our hands are tied because that position, and it goes back to what I talked about earlier about being educated. The governor and the labor commission, along with about 6 or 7 others, are statewide positions, which means everyone votes for them.
Right.
And so we're not in control over them on what they do. They execute whatever it is in their office. And in this case, in the labor commissioner's position, he has sole authority on how he's going to handle his department. Only time we were interfered, we were in session, which we're not, then we could have passed legislation to either, hey, you're going to have to do this, or you did this, but now we're going to change it to this.
Yeah.
But when we're not in session, we can't pass any legislation. So we're only in session 40 days out of a year. So those other days, all kind of things can happen.
Girl.
And then with the governor, he could have utilized the Georgia National Guard to come in and help with those claims that people are saying that they're not getting answers for.
Right.
So those are all kind of things that you want to look at government efficiency as making sure that it's flowing from the federal government to the state and to the local.
Yeah.
Because anytime you have a crack in government efficiency on any level, the people are the ones that end up suffering at the end.
If nothing else, I need y'all to be in session longer than 40 days. If nothing else, I need at least 52, at least one day a week. So at least as things are coming up, we might be able to put something in place to kind of offset that. It's almost like I think people are coming in and wanting to be representatives and senators, and that's great. But I think there's just a bigger hierarchy and tiers that we need to be going for, that there's more power and more control in those levels, because it's impacting all of us, and the decisions that are being done by the state are not necessarily the best ones.
Right, and and that's very important with that, because the federal government, of course, they're in session all year long, but now they've just gone on break, but they haven't been able to come to a conclusion or compromise on CARES money. So what is happening to the people? They're out here, they're suffering. They're getting ready to start facing eviction. The utilities getting ready to be cut off. School has started back. That means the kids at home, so that means there are higher needs that within your household that you need. Your insurance needs to be paid. All these things need to be paid, and then you don't have a solution because you have partisanship that's going on. And that's one of the reasons why I'm running as an independent, because I want to get rid of the partisanship divide. And I've already been able to work with both Republicans and Democrats for coming up with decisions and making things successful. And so being able to take that experience up there to Washington, D.C. to look at what's the issues for the people and being a champion for all of Georgians, not because you're part of a particular party. Because issues are not Republican issues, they're not Democratic issues, they are people issues.
So let's opportunity to educate people that are listening and watching. So running as an independent versus as a partisan, just give us a little definition. Independent versus partisan, tell us that.
Okay, so right now in the state of Georgia, there are two recognized parties. There's a Democratic Party and then there's a Republican Party. And because this was a special election, usually what happens if an independent wants to run in the state, they have to get a certain percentage of whatever the last votes are. But because it's a special election, and the reason it's a special election is because Senator Johnny Isakson retired from this particular seat last year. And then the governor made an appointment, but the people have to decide who they want to represent them to finish out the remaining term of Senator Isakson's term, which would be 2 years remaining after 6 years. And so because of that, and me running as an independent, I did not have to go through the process of getting signatures. And because it was a special election, we didn't have a primary. So it wasn't a process just like the other Senate race where you chose a Democrat or Republican. That wasn't like this because it's a special election. It's just going to be held on the same day as a general election. So as an independent, I'm able to think independent. That's the key with the word in there. And still understand the values that are in the Democratic Party, understand the values on the Republican Party, but not when my decisions are being made, they're not going to be controlled by what party leadership says that I have to vote. And that is what has happened down at the state capitol that I've been have faced and had to fight against because the issues that I fought for were people issues.
So as a voter, how can I vote for a independent if I'm typically a Republican or a Democrat, but now this is Valencia Stovall person. I want to vote for her. What do I do when I get to the voting booth? Do I say I'm voting independent? What do I do? How do I vote for you?
For general election, everyone gets the general ballot. And so everyone will be listed on there. My name is not a write-in. You don't have to worry about trying to remember how to spell it.
Be clear. It's all going to be on the ballot.
So it's all going to be listed on the ballot. They just need to look for Stovall, that's all.
That's it. Woo, she rhymed. Stovall, that's all. So it's going to be on the ballot. Absolutely fantastic. So I wanted to ask you this. We lost a great man, Representative John Lewis. He has such a impact on the world, but especially us here in Atlanta. I think we all feel like we knew him because we could see him. He was within our midst. This was his home. I signed up for his email, so I got a sense of what was happening. He was very good. His office was very good about giving people a heads up on what to look for and what was happening, what was impacting us as citizens, as Black communities, just different things that were going on. I just wanted to ask you, what kind of impact did he have on you, and what are you going to take from his life going forward?
Well, definitely being courageous, even against when it's adversarial, being courageous and knowing that when you're fighting for something and it's in your heart, you know that you're fighting for it, even though you're gonna face many obstacles, but you still have to push forward for that. So that's one of those things, and then making sure that people understand the importance of voting. Right now we have a lot of people that are millennials and younger, and they just say, well, we don't see the reason for voting. Why should I go and vote? The machines messed up the last time.
Line's too long.
And the line's too long. I don't need to worry about that. And so one of the things I would tell them is that look at what's going on now with COVID-19. If you like what's going on with COVID-19, don't vote. And I know that that's not going to be true because everyone has an issue with what has happened with COVID-19. And that should be enough to be able to motivate you to say, what is that you would like to see change as we're coming through COVID-19? It's a difficult time, but then there are opportunities in every tragedy. There's always opportunities. So what would you like to see change? And that's who you're going to vote for. And so going back with Congressman Lewis is, standing up for what you believe in, even if you're by yourself. You have to stand up for for what you believe in.
What would you say to women that want to get into government and politics? What would you say to motivate them or encourage them, or the gotchas or things that they should look out for?
Definitely educate yourself on whatever policies or whatever position that you're interested in. The more that you educate and go and talk to other people, if you want to go and participate or volunteer in campaigns, you come volunteer in my campaign. And that way, once you're educated about the issues, then you know how to perform or set up your platform or the issues that are dear to you. Don't worry about trying to handle 10 different things. Just look at one or two things that are most important to you that you feel that you might could have an impact in changing that particular issue. For me, when I first became elected, I didn't look at everything I could change. I know we're going to have all these issues. I focus on education. And so with education, I stayed in it, even through the tough times against my party, because I fought for school choice. I heard earlier you talked about your child being enrolled in charter schools, and you wouldn't believe that majority of Democratic parties are not in favor of charter schools. And so because I know that that's a choice that parents should be able to make on how they want to educate their children. And if the federal government and local government and state is supporting our traditional public schools, then they need to support our non-traditional public schools and whatever other choice that parents make as far as how they want to educate their children. So being able to have to fight, stand up and fight, and sometimes by myself, maybe two of us that's standing there fighting, for that. But I knew at the end I was fighting for a good reason. And when you talk about, even with John Lewis, talk about good trouble, that was a good trouble for me and continue to be a good trouble. So for women, there are issues that we face that a lot of times, especially as Black women, that other races don't face. And so if whatever that is that tugs at your heart as far as what you need to fight for, then that's what you go and fight for. You go and find out what the rules are. That's what I tell everybody that wants to get into politics or anything. Find out what the rules are. Once you know what the rules are, then you know how to do whatever you need to do to get the results that you need.
Representative Stovall, I've been here in Atlanta for over 30 years. And for as long as I've been here, the educational system has always been in the bottom. Like we've always ranked, out of 50 states, we've always ranked 47, 48, 49, always at the bottom. Any idea why it's such a struggle for us here in Georgia to really accept that education is important for all of us? Any idea why that is?
I believe that sometimes when you have ways that things are done and people think that that's the best way to continue to do them, and you're not willing to change and innovate in how education is delivered. And that's what I have seen here in the state of Georgia.
Okay.
You have school system that's been, we've been doing this all the time, but it has been working. You're looking at the statistics. And then when you have some school districts that do very well and others continue to not do well, you know, why is there no correlation between the two? When it comes down to your school district's doing well, what is that you have that we don't have in our area that causes the difference? And a lot of times it goes back to property taxes or how they're charged. And the funding of school districts are based on property taxes and of course local taxes. So if you have a more affluent area, their property taxes are going to be higher. The collection on those taxes, and about 60% of your property taxes goes towards the education system, which is a huge chunk that comes out. And when you look at it, am I getting the bang for my bucks, or how much we're putting into it as a return on investment? It's not equaling out. So you have to be able, and those are one of the things I'll be pushing in as a U.S. Senator, is getting outside of that box and stop being so scared to get outside the box. COVID-19 came in, and many of our school districts were forced outside of that box in a very uncomfortable zone. But look at it, they now having to change around and figure out how to do it. Parents now who weren't paying attention sometimes with how the kids were doing and how the education level was doing, now they've been forced to know what level, you know, their particular children are on.
Absolutely right. Big announcement this week in politics as Joe Biden has announced who his running mate will be, which is Kamala Harris. What are your points or opinions on that opportunity for her?
Well, I think it's a great, great historical opportunity, especially having to be able to pick a vice president as a black woman the first time ever being on a ticket like that. Why it took so long, I don't know. It should have been happening sooner, but we'll deal with where we are now.
Said Shirley Chisholm, way back.
Way back.
Way back, yes ma'am.
I think it's very good because anytime you have a woman that's elected in a position, that compassion always shows out. And not saying that the men don't have it, but it's just certain things that God has built in us that we end up are able to be that compassion with it. And so I think with that being able to, because now we're in a presidency that there's no compassion, you know, at all. And in order for us to move back into that area where we were well respected as the United States of America, we don't have that respect anymore. We've lost it a whole lot. And so it's going to take a team of whoever that is in that office to be able to bring that compassion and that respect back to America and have and also look at what's going to be best to grow our businesses, what's going to be best to improve our education system. Because one thing about it, you mentioned earlier about education, is that it's important to make sure our children have the best foundation, because they're going to age out of our school system. They're going to turn 18 eventually. And if they don't have the best education, then they fall into a whole nother system that all of us pay for again. And so whether it's in the prison system, whether it's on social services, or maybe, you know, they no longer here because of different circumstances. So that's one of the reasons why I push so hard for school choice, is that so that parents can have that opportunity. And so when you're looking at who's going to be the drivers of that seat in Washington, D.C., you want someone that's in there that's knowledgeable about what's going on in the different communities, no matter about what race it is. There are different issues that are going on, and you want them to be able to make the best decision that's going to be right to move our whole country forward.
For Biden and Kamala Harris, what is the first thing you would like to see them do if given the position to be president and vice president? What do you think they should do first?
Definitely, I think probably gonna have to take a deep breath, and even I think reach back out to the local different governments. To identify what are those areas that they see that they need the most help in. Just like sometimes I would be on White House intergovernmental calls talking to us as state elected officials, and you get a chance to kind of hear what's going on in different states. And I think they're going to have to reconnect back to the community because that's what has happened. It's been disconnected. And so many people are suffering so much during COVID-19 that need help, and you got to know where's that help need to come from. So I think starting out talking with the local leaders, it might not be all at once. You may have, you know, the governors on one call, the state elected officials on another, the local mayor and city council on another, school board might be on another, call. Because they all have different facets. Then you're going to need to talk to the Chamber of Commerce and just regular business people who might not be a member of the Chamber of Commerce, because it costs a little money to be a member of the Chamber. So just kind of reaching out to everybody to kind of see what those different needs are. And then I know they started putting a comprehensive plan together, but then aligning it to make sure that it's lined up to what the needs are of the people.
A lot of women of color in politics now, from mayors to governors to representatives, senators, congressmen. Is America turning as it relates to black women? Are they starting to see our value and what we bring to the table? Or are times changing, or not really?
I think times are changing. They're not changing fast enough.
Come on, girl, give it some gas.
Because even when I look down at the state capitol, the number of women, period.
Yes.
If I take out the color, just the women, period.
Yes, ma'am.
It's still majority men that are representing us. And then now when I bring in the color, it's still a small number of African American women who are representing us. This is just at the state capitol, on the House and the Senate side. And but then there are issues that face black women that are not faced by as hard as other races. I'll give you an example. I served on the House Study Committee for maternal mortality. And the thing about how it was all set up, it only had 2 African American women that served on it, myself and one of the representatives from Columbus, Georgia. Right. And when sitting there listening to all the statistics, and every person that got up that was an expert talked about how African American women are 3 to 4 times likely to die more than any other race because of childbirth related issues. And so when you hear that, I was astonished. I was like, and this is national. It's not just, it's just Georgia's high in Georgia, but even nationally, this is a huge issue. So when you look at that, so first thing I'm thinking, okay, when we get ready to make our recommendation, I know we should have several recommendations about African American women and issues, things, and programs geared towards them.
Yes, ma'am.
But that wasn't the case. Even when I sent in my recommendation, I asked each one of the members to send in their recommendations. And of course, one of the ones I said is that we need to establish a more deeper study into why African American women are being affected more. And then the other one was establishing a commission, the African American Women's Health Commission, focused just on African American women. If we 3 to 4 times likely, that means we checking out of here faster than any other race. Then to me, that's a pandemic all by itself. Just like we had the issue with meth. We set up all of these resources for people to go and get help if they were addicted centers, additional housing. So what would be the difference for black women? It's no difference to me. Both of them were issues and major issues. So that's why I said we haven't come farther enough. Because if we as a state know that that's an issue with 3 to 4 times likely, and that means that we need to start at an early age, even before the children are born. And then even as they get born, we need to educate them more on healthy living, healthy style, and making sure they're not in food deserts where they don't have access and they can't afford to buy fresh fruits and vegetables, those other things, and that the stress level is not so high. Because it's raising children, even as a single parent, your stress level is extra high, because you're not only having to worry about yourself, but you're worrying about your children. Then if you don't have the health care for yourself, you can't go to the doctor, because if you're on an hourly job, you miss an hour, that's your pay. That means you're going to be behind that week, the next week, and the week after that. So that's why I said we haven't come farther enough when it comes down to issues for African American women.
We got a lot on us. We tend to make it look easy, but we do have a lot on us. There is a lot. If you don't go to work, you don't get paid.
And then your pay is not the same level of pay as a man, as a white woman, or as a man, period.
You can't even make excuses to not be at work for your children. They look at that as a handicap. So it's a lot of different things against us. But to God be the glory, we continue to keep moving and keep pressing. But it's these kind of conversations and people like yourself, Representative, that we need on the ground helping us to make the difference for us, because we're speaking, we're Black Lives Matter, we're doing this, and we're all over the place, and we're protesting, and we're trying to raise the vibration, but we need people in the spaces that can represent and let's bring it to the table, to the forefront to be addressed, because it's just not going to go away.
No,
it's getting
not.
A little better, but not enough.
It's not fast enough.
It's not
especially
enough.
when you think about how much time has elapsed.
Yes.
With this. And so, being able to fight for those issues, that are real issues.
Yeah.
And so those are, things that I plan on doing is fighting for those real issues that mean the most to people.
Yeah.
Everybody have issues, but there are certain issues that are more prominent. And if we can find solutions to them or lessen the amount of gravity in those issues, then we can move to everything else. But certain things, just like when you talk about a woman's health, that's very important. And then even you talk about health disparities and racial health disparities.
Yes.
When a black woman goes to the doctor and she complains about sickness or pain, though if it's a white physician or a physician of another color, they dismiss her. Oh, you'll be all right here. You just going through that. And then they go home, they thinking the doctor is right. And then they come back again, hey, I'm still having this pain. And for some reason, this is what the research said when the experts came, that they think that black women can take on more pain, can bear more pain, are stronger. And so that's why they don't pay. Oh, we exaggerating our situation or issue. So those are very, very important when you think about, African American women and the struggle, and then how do we move on, and especially as us rising in more executive positions, which means we're taking on more responsibilities, and still having to help to raise children, whether you're in a single home or a two-family home. There's still a lot that goes with that.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot, but we make it. We're doing a good job. Y'all are doing a good job. Y'all keep up the good work. So, Representative Stovall, when can we vote for you? I'm just putting it out there. So if somebody wants to vote for you, when is it? November? Are you going to be on that?
November the 3rd. The ballot that's coming up, November the 3rd.
And name will be printed on the ballot.
It will be printed. Just go down to see Stovall, that's all. Now you can continue down the ballot. I want you to, but just make sure that you stop where it says Valencia Stovall.
And for those that can't see, she has Stovall earrings on. I think it's the cutest thing.
Thank you.
It's cute.
One of my supporters, Leatherwood Design, she created them and she gave me 2 pairs. One that's orange and one that has like a bronze or brown color. So I decided to wear my orange today.
And matching your badge today. You just look so official.
Thank you.
So listen, Representative, if people want to find out what you're about, what your beliefs are, what you're fighting for, is there a website? Is there somewhere, a place where people can get more information about you and your platform and what you're doing and what you're representing?
Yes, they can go to gostovall.com. That's GOSTOVALL.com. I'm on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Valencia Stovall. Also on LinkedIn at Valencia Stovall. And every Friday I do a live show talking about issues. This past Friday, we did it on college students that were returning back in the effects of COVID-19. And next Friday, this upcoming Friday, we will actually have senior citizens on talking about how they've been affected with COVID-19. And my dad will be one of my guests.
Of course he will. Dad is about 80 years old, still giving people heck, right? Giving it to them.
Giving it to him.
He's not ready to check out. And there's still a community of senior citizens that are very active. I mean, we as black people I believe we're making a turn, right?
Yes.
Unfortunately, through this COVID-19 and this pandemic, there has been an awakening in us in a sense that we want to take better care of ourselves, right? We are trying to stay away from the food deserts or the things that are not good for us, because now we know that our immune system is our only fighting chance against this disease, right? This virus, and they don't have an answer for it. So it's up to us to kind of figure it out. So I think people are trying to drink more water and cook more at home and not eat out as much, and just try to incorporate more fruits and vegetables and just try to be more organic or more of the herbs, or just trying to figure out, versus to your point earlier, Representative, a doctor just writing you a prescription and you're taking it. Because that's a whole nother money stream in itself for the pharmaceutical companies, right? So to keep you on a dialysis machine, right? If you look, there's so many dialysis centers in our community.
And why they're not that same amount?
You can't find that nowhere else. You know what I mean? But you can find them, and you can find liquor stores, and you can find churches, and you You can find fried food places or fast food places in our communities, and in other communities are very, very rarely hard to find. So we want people to pay attention to the signs, right, and to the traits that things just automatically just appear in our neighborhood just to kind of keep us in a certain plateau or dynamic. But we're smarter than that, right? So we have people like you fighting for us for legislation and laws, and then we got to do the work and make sure we pay attention and take better care of ourselves.
And ask those questions.
And ask the tough questions. So have you enjoyed doing your podcast? How's that been going for you?
Yes, I have. It's been very informative. Got a chance to talk with students and kind of hearing from them.
Yeah.
And we had high school students that were 2 from a private school, and then I had 1 that was from a traditional public school. And just hearing the commonality among them, and then those differences. Then we talked with teachers to kind of hear what their fears were with going into COVID-19. And so, you know, keeping informed on all of those different levels. We talked to someone that was an expert with immigration, you know, which is a whole nother issue that's going on. And we talk about global stewardship, how we need to be better with how we are here in the United States. We can't be an island by ourselves. We don't have all the resources, so we do have to have better international relationships that are going on. And so how do we, you know, promote that? How do we deal with the immigration issues that we have here locally? So it's been really exciting to be able to interview the different people and hear the different point of views and everything.
It's addictive.
Yes,
podcasting and talking to folks is addictive. I'm trying to tell you, you can't get enough of it. Be like, man, I got to show this you. I can't do it. I'm excited. One thing I want you to cover, I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to be checking out, listening to it, is talking to small business owners again, you know, entrepreneurs and small businesses. And you hit a very good point, because there are a lot of businesses that don't have 100 people. It's really them and maybe somebody else doing it and trying to make things happen. And so it'd be interesting to understand how people are navigating through these times, right? Especially when you had a business that required people to be in front of you, face to face, and now everything is digital and virtual. So how do we pivot and turn and make those adjustments? We can never talk about that enough, because again, at the end, we're like at the bottom of the pole. So again, it'd be great to get some different insights on how people are operating during these times with that.
Yeah, most definitely. And then you look at small businesses, they actually are affecting 2 types of income. Their employees that they hire, and then their own.
Yes.
You know, so they're not working for corporate America, they're working for themselves. So when the pandemic hit, it hit them really hard. And that's why it was important to make sure that the resources came down to those small businesses, because they were hit effective themselves in their own household. And just think, if you had a couple that worked in that same business, they were double hit, you know, with the income deficit. So, you know, our small business, our livelihood, you know, for this state and for this country. So we have to make sure they're supported. And then how do we even increase more small business opportunities, especially now with COVID-19? How do we utilize state departments, federal departments, to be able to help support our small businesses that have to thrive?
It takes money to make money.
Yes, it does.
So we're going to need a little money.
Yes.
You know, for those that are listening, we're going to need a little money. And, you know, support black businesses, right? Support the small businesses. You know, find the quality ones out there and support them and invest your money in that. This was great. How can people find you again? Tell them, Representative Stovall.
Go Stovall.com. GOSTOVALL.com.
Yes. All right.
And you can make a donation, $5 or more. We have to get the message across the whole state of Georgia. So if you know someone in one of those small towns, rural towns, we want to talk to them as well. So make sure you're spreading the word about the campaign. And it's November the 3rd, but I want you to go and vote early. Do not wait till November the 3rd to vote. Go and vote early.
Go now. Go now. It was wonderful. Thank you so much, Representative Stovall, for your time. You know, that's my time. You know me. I'm everywhere. Real Chicks Rock is everywhere. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We got a website, realchicksrock.com. Please go to the website to subscribe so you do not miss our email blasts and our blogs. We have a YouTube channel. Go and subscribe to that channel. We're on Roku. We're on iTunes. We're on iHeart Radio, we're on Spotify, you name it, we are there. There's no reason why you should be missing one of these episodes. And yes, go to the website. We are pushing t-shirts and masks and the combination, all that. We want you to be safe and cute at the same time. So support small businesses if you can, as best as you can. That's my time. You guys take care and continue to be well. Until next time, continue to rock on. Bye.